Select to make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm not going to do some elaborate intro. You read the title, you clicked on this video for a reason. So,
I love card games. Specifically, trading card games. And based on the fact that you're sitting here watching this video, you probably do too. So, you already know what's going on in this video. We're going to take a deep dive into creating my very own trading card game. I'll go over my design process, my inspirations, the game mechanics, and even how you, yes, you, sitting there watching this video right now, how you can start playing right now. Let's get into it. Alright, let's start with some history. What is a trading card game? Well, way back in the 1900s, a new idea sprung onto the marketing scene. Trading cards. Companies would make little cards with characters or people on them for people to collect. Some of these had cool arts or sayings or even jokes on them. A lot of these came in things like packs of gum or cereal boxes, things of the like. The fun from these cards came from collecting as many as you could to create a full collection. By far, the most popular kinds of these early trading cards were the sports cards, specifically baseball cards. These cards had pictures of real players on them and would typically have facts or stats about them on the back of them. Then, in 1983, the world was hit with genius. A college student by the name of Richard Garfield designed a game based around these trading cards. The game was fantasy themed, and the premise was that players would open packs of cards and trade with other players to build their own decks to play with. The game would be known as Magic the Gathering. And obviously, being the first, this game is still perfect to this day with no issues and nothing bad at all. Anyway, this premise would become the basis of all trading card games. Open packs, get cards, trade with others, and play the game. It took the idea of trading cards and made it fun by giving each card its own purpose, strengths, weaknesses, and even story. Later on, the Pokemon TCG would be released, and the market for trading card games exploded. Then, even later, the world would get the awkward third child of the big three, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Enrique!
I'll be honest, I don't really know that much about Yu-Gi-Oh!, but all three of these are still around today. So now that we've gotten the exposition out of the way, let's get into the specifics of my card game. So for my card game, I wanted to make interesting and unique gameplay, while also fixing some of the issues that I have with other card games. So here are my targets to include in this game. One of the things that I have a problem with in games like Magic the Gathering is the discard pile. In these games, unless you're playing a specific kind of deck or very specific cards, once you play a card, it's gone. I feel like this makes players less likely to use the cards they actually put in their decks because they don't want to lose them in case they need them later in the game. Another thing I want to improve is the speed of games. While TCGs are often strategy-based games, they can take forever just to finish one game. And I don't really have a problem with this normally because a lot of cases the game is built around this. For instance, Magic's Commander format is meant to be a more social format, so it warrants longer games. However, for my game, I want a more fast-paced gameplay loop. I also want to limit the snowball effect. What I mean by this is, say that in a game your opponent plays a card that puts them way ahead of you and a lot closer to winning the game. Rather than letting that player keep the advantage and simply growing like a snowball rolling down a mountain, the game should give the player who's behind a slight boost to even the odds a little more. This keeps the game interesting and gives both players a fighting chance at winning, even if one player is a lot closer. And finally, randomization. I'm not talking about which cards you draw from your deck, which of course is somewhat randomized. I want to add a mechanic to the game that is partially randomized to keep things interesting. Otherwise, games will go the same every time. A little randomization will keep players on their toes while testing their skills at responding to what the game throws at them. So, with all this laid out, let's go to Lexford in the field to see what he's come up with. Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, Lexford in the field. I don't have a script for this part, so I'm just gonna improv it. Here we go. Gameplay. So here's the basic gameplay of this card game. So in the game, players are gonna be able to play energy cards. Energy cards, right? And they're gonna come in all sorts of different colors. Not necessarily these colors, but probably something like these colors. And you're going to use the energy cards to play character cards. The character cards have a cost. And it's going to be up here, and it's got the different colors on it, just like in Magic the Gathering. So you're going to take your energy cards that you play, but you're not going to play them separately. You're going to play them on top of each other in a stack. This stack has to correspond to this. It doesn't have to be in the same order or anything. It doesn't even have to have like if you have more in this stack, more energy cards in this stack, that's fine. As long as this stack contains all of these on this card, then that's fine. Then you're okay. And you can play this card. You play it on top of the stack. You play the character card on top of the stack. Right? And then your opponent will also play character cards, and they're gonna fight. Right? You make them battle. The characters, they battle. And when your character kills another character, you get 1 point. And the first player to 10 points wins. That is the basics of the gameplay for this game. The very, very, very basics of the gameplay here. You play character cards on top of stacks of energy, and then you fight other characters to win. Now, for the things that are more complicated, the discard pile. So, unlike in Pokemon, where when you play energy on top of characters, or on top of Pokemon, and the Pokemon dies, all that energy goes to the discard pile. That's not the same here. If the character dies, the stack stays where it is. The stack will stay, but the character will go to the discard pile. Also, there's going to be item cards in the game, and item cards are going to do all sorts of things, like help you out, give you boosts, give you cards and things, all sorts of stuff. But they're also going to have stuff like energy retrieval from Pokemon, where you can get stuff from your discard pile back into your hand. Excuse me. The speed of the game. So, this game is very similar to Pokemon, in case you couldn't tell with its, how it works. In terms of, like, mechanics and things and bases. It's based a lot around Pokemon, and Pokemon is a very fast-paced game. And that's due to multiple factors. Specifically, not having to wait for mana like you would in Magic. You can just play stuff on top of that. My game is a little bit different, but I'm hoping that because it's similar to Pokemon in that way, it will maintain a higher pace.
Alright, and now for snowballing and randomization, which are in the same section. So, I've decided to incorporate dice rolling, which is obviously the most random thing that you can possibly do. So every turn, the player will roll for energy for turn. Not to be confused with the energy cards, which actually have a different name. They're called stones, which I'll get into later. But they roll for energy for turn. So the energy that you roll for, you pay for a champion zone, which costs 4 energy. This is what you move your characters into to attack. You can pay for bench zones, which costs 2 energy. This is where you can play stacks of cards and characters on top of them. And you can pay for 1 extra draw, which is also 2 energy. You can do all of these only once per turn. So you can buy 1 champion zone per turn, you can buy 1 bench zone per turn, and you can do 1 extra draw per turn if you have the energy. You'll need 8 energy for that. How do you get 8 energy? Well, you can also pay for... Sorry, I forgot to include this in the last slide. You can also pay for the evade cost of characters, which is this little number in the bottom right corner. That is basically how much it costs to move the character from the champion zone to the bench. It does not cost anything to move the character from the bench to the champion zone, but it does to move them back and to switch them. So you can do 2 energy for that one. Okay, so say in the game, your opponent gains 1 point. Basically, they defeat one of your characters, so they gain 1 point, right? So now you have +1 energy every turn. Every time you roll, say you roll a 1, but your opponent has 1 point, you now have 2 energy for turn. So that adds on. So that'll be the same. If he has 2 points, you will have +2 energy on all your rolls. So let's go through the basics of gameplay. Now that I've explained all the mechanics, we're going to do like a speed round, basics of gameplay to get this done. All right? At the beginning of the game, both players draw 5 cards for their starting hand out of a deck of 40 cards with no more than 4 of any card except for basic stone cards. The stone cards are played in stacks. You can play 1 per turn, and you can move 1 into a different stack or a different spot on the bench once per turn. You play these onto spots on your bench, which you start with 3 spots on your bench at the beginning of the game. Stacks of stone cards are what you use to pay for these costs. You play a character card based on its costs. This one costs 2 yellow and a blue. The stack has 2 yellow and a blue. It contains 2 yellow and a blue. Doesn't have to be in that order, but as long as it contains 2 yellow and a blue, you can play this character card from your hand on top of that stack on your bench. Character cards, when they're in their champion zone, only when you're in the champion zone, they attack. You can attack another player's character. If you have a character in your champion zone and your opponent does not have a character in their champion zone or does not have a champion zone, when you attack, you automatically gain 1 point. When you defeat another one of your player's characters, you gain 1 point. You need 10 points to win the game. That's important. You need 10 points to win the game. You can move your character to your champion zone for free. You need to pay 4 energy to gain a champion zone. You start with 0 champion zones at the beginning of the game. You start with no champion zones. When you have a champion zone, though, you can move a character from your champion zone from your bench to your champion zone for free. At the beginning of your turn, you draw 1 card from your deck, and you roll for energy with a 6-sided die. And your energy for turn equals your roll plus your opponent's total points. And that's pretty much it. That's the basics of gameplay. That's how you play the game. Way easier than writing it down on a piece of paper, but I'm still going to do that. Anyway, back to Postfield Lexard.
Thank you, Lexard in the field. As you can see, I'm a genius. So, the game is based around playing characters using energy, and then battling to win. So we have the gameplay, but we don't have the game yet. So the next step is going to be to actually make the game. We're going to make a working prototype so we can actually test the gameplay. And luckily, I have that right here. In this box, I've got the 2 prototype decks for the first version of Rumbleverse, is what I'm calling this game. So here are the 2 decks. This is a red and yellow deck, and this is a blue and green deck. So I'll show you here what we've got. I'm using Pokemon energy cards as the stone cards here for the stacking mechanic. Because I can, so why not? So here we go. We've got. I'll go through. I don't know if I'll go through the second one, but I will go through this one, and I'll show you. This is a character card. This is like the big boss monster of the deck. This is the King of Flames. Please excuse my horrible artwork. There are some really, really bad ones. These are all hand-drawn, handwritten, so like my handwriting is not very good. Okay, but it's okay. This is just a prototype version, and I wanted to get physical cards to work with. So, here's the name of the character. Here's the artwork. This here is the cost. So, when you're playing energies, or stones as I'm calling them, this guy requires there to be 5 red stones in a stack. Then you can play him on top of that, right? Obviously not that sloppily, but you get the point. So that's his cost. And here's his attack stat. ATK stands for attack. His attack stat is 90. Right? And this is his health stat. It's 300 because he's a big boss monster. And then this is his evade cost. So the evade cost is how many points you have to spend. Not points, energy. How many energy you have to spend to it's basically like the retreat cost in Pokemon, except it's called the evade cost. So all of your characters score double points for victory. That's his effect. That's his ability in his box. That's what he does. For another example, here's like the ace of this deck. Essentially, ignore the stars. The stars are on both copies of this card. This has the better art in my opinion, but they're on both the copies. But that was from a different version of the game where I was going to make something else with that. It's more similar to Pokemon where you'd have to pay for the cost. But I decided against that because I thought that was not interesting enough. So, this guy has attack 130. He has 200 health, 4 cost. The yellow's kind of hard to see in person, but it is still there. It's actually better to see on the camera now I'm seeing this, but yeah, so he costs 2 of the yellow and 2 of the red, and his evade cost is 3. So there's other characters in here, but I won't go through them. Like, these are some basic characters. These guys have some more abilities. I want to get to the items though. So item cards, you can use as many item cards as you want per turn, just like in Pokemon. They have no drawbacks. You just use them and then they go right into the discard pile. So, unstable chemical, that's the name. If it's an item card, it'll say that down here. These have no cost. You just play it and then you do the ability. This is one I designed to be somewhat of a staple index. So there is, I think there's 2 in this deck, and then there's also 2 in this deck, and there's another staple in here as well, where there's 4 in this deck and 4 in that deck, so it's pretty good. Cursed Flame is a resource. Resource cards are more like the trainer cards from Pokemon, where you can only play 1 per turn. I only have the 1 in both these decks because I'm not sure how I feel about adding that kind of card, and I'm not sure if I want to do something different with the resource card name, but it's just a test, you know. I originally had something different. Like, obviously this one says to attach to a character you control. You don't need it. I don't think you really need that, but if I want to in the future change it, I might. So look forward to that in future versions. Other than that, Stone Vacuum is the other staple I was going to talk about, because Stone Vacuum lets you like reveal a stone card from your deck. You basically search for a stone card and you get a free one. There's 4 of those in this deck. And there's other cards as well, of course. But that is basically that. That's basically this deck. There's not much different about this deck except for the fact that it's blue and green. It has pretty much the same stuff, you know, basic. Hopefully not too powerful. I'm a little worried that this deck is a little more powerful than this one. I'm worried that the blue one's more powerful than the red and yellow one, but I will test that out now. Back to you, Editing Elixir. Before we get into the playtest of the prototype decks, I want to talk a little bit about a pretty important aspect of trading card games that I haven't touched on yet, and that's theming. Now, what does that mean for my game, Rumbleverse? I talked a little bit about the theming for the game in my prototype deck showcase, but I think it deserves its own section here. So in Rumbleverse, you play characters onto spots on your bench and in your champion zone. The quote-unquote energy cards are called stones, which is short for Rumble Stones. Rumble Stones are the core of any character in this game. So without the stones, they wouldn't exist. You play the stones in stacks in order to play characters. The term energy is used for the rolling dice mechanic, where every turn you gain energy based on what you roll. Everything else is pretty simple. The game's gonna have a somewhat silly tone with a little bit of seriousness and the more important cards that are vital to the story or are just supposed to be like really cool. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the first playtest.
So, unfortunately, this segment of the video is not going to be the full recording of the first playtest, which I had originally planned for, because it was a lot longer than I had originally planned for. It was almost an hour of footage, so I didn't want to put that in here to make this episode super long. But if you are interested in watching the full, uncut everything of the first playtest, that will be uploaded as well along with this video. So you can go check that out on my channel if you are interested in that. But I have the footage in the background right now, just sped up to like 20 times while I rant about the summary of what actually went down. So I want to talk about what worked and what didn't work. What worked was the basic gameplay loop. The loop of drawing a card, rolling die, playing things. It felt very good. It was very fun. Strategy based. It was very strategy based, and I felt myself finding fun and interesting things about it the whole time. It was really exciting. But there were some things I think didn't work. First of all, the energy mechanic. It worked. I think it needs more. So I think I just need more uses for energy. The use for adding new champion zones and drawing a card every turn, that's very useful. But it seems to become like more second nature, where it's like, okay, I rolled a 2, so towards the end, and even at the beginning, it was like, okay, I get to draw an extra card every turn. I think maybe increasing the number, so maybe like it's not 2, but it's 5, it costs 5 to draw an extra card, that would be very beneficial. I also think increasing the number the amount that it costs to buy a champion zone will also be helpful. I'm thinking of like maybe doubling it. So like when you play your first champion zone, it's still 4, but when you play the second one, it's 8, or maybe just increment it by 4. So then when you buy the third one, it's now costs 12. So something like that. But I think it just needs more uses, because energy was a cool mechanic. It was something that was there, and I could see that it just didn't have the full potential just yet. It was interesting, and I really like it, and I think it really helps with the snowballing and randomization effects, but overall it needed more uses. And then ramping. I feel like there needs to be a better way to get energy, or not energy, but stone cards out on the field. And whether that has to do with energy, like maybe you pay a certain amount to be able to play another card, that could be interesting. That could also kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but I'm not sure if I want to do that. But yeah, basically the things that worked were, it was fun, it was fast-paced, the stacking mechanics worked, the combat mechanics mostly worked. The things that didn't work was energy needs more, stones needs more ramp stuff, and also I think the green and blue deck was a little bit too powerful, because it did kind of stomp over the red and yellow deck for the most part, and I feel like it needs to be nerfed a little bit, but that's what I'm keeping in mind. I'm not going to change the rules just yet, but I'll wait till episode 2 to do that. Back to you editing Lexard. So, there you have it. The first playtest of Rumbleverse TCG. And now this is the moment you've all been waiting for. How can you, yes, you sitting right there watching this video right now, how can you play Rumbleverse TCG today? Well, I'm so glad you asked. To start beta testing Rumbleverse, you can join the Discord. In the Discord, there are printable versions of the 2 prototype decks that I showcase in this video that you can print out, cut out, and play with your friends, your family, your grandma, your goldfish, anybody. I'm also looking for feedback on the gameplay and on the game itself, so be sure to comment your thoughts, your ideas for mechanics or cards or gameplay or anything, and share them with me in the Discord too. I'm working on a full rulebook for version 1.0 of Rumbleverse, which is this version, and I'll put that in the Discord when it is finished. The link will be in the description for the Discord, so go and check it out immediately. With all that said, be sure, join the Discord, play the game, let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next episode.